The Scania 143e 500 truck was one of the 3 series introduced by Scania at the end of the 1980s. The model is in the colours of Brouwer, a Dutch special transport company. The model comes in a Tekno branded box which has a window, but you can't see the model because there's a protective sheet of foam rubber on top. And when you remove that, there's a simple instruction sheet which covers the Goldhofer trailer, and then you can get the parts out of the box. First out is the Scania Tractor, which is not quite as heavy as some similar models from other makers. There's the gooseneck for the trailer and the largest of the 2 deck sections. There's also a smaller deck section, and the rear bogie unit is the last of the main model parts out of the box. There are also many other small parts, and these are contained in a number of bags. These are parts for both the trailer and the tractor, and the instruction sheet doesn't cover the fitting of many of these parts, although it's not difficult to work out where they go. The Scania has many parts to fit which add detail to the model, and the first we'll add is the exhaust at the back. You need to be careful how you fit that in by pressing on the silver bar and not the red stabilising bar, because that would break if you pushed it. And at the front there's a ball bar to fit. Many of these fittings are really quite loose, so you need to do something to fit the parts, either use glue or some plastic putty. The roof has some aerials to fit, and again they're fairly loose fitting. And there's also some tiny lights which fit on either side of the top of the cab. For many of these parts I've prepared the holes that they fit into by putting in some plastic putty just to make sure they fit securely. So here's the door mirror going on. And there are also grab rails which fit on both sides of the cab, and they just secure into holes at the bottom of the cab. There's one door mirror to fit, and that goes over the passenger side door and pushes into place. What then remains to be fitted are some very, very small parts, and first up there are a couple of indicator lights on each side of the cab. These are very small and easily lost, and there are no spares provided in the bag. So you do need to make sure that they are securely fitted. There are also some ever so tiny reflectors which fit at the bottom of the cab into the bumper, and again they're very, very small, and they're painted red and orange, so you need to get them the right way round. The detailing of the Scania is completed by just fitting 2 more reflectors, and these go at the back at the end of the light bar. Moving now to the Goldhofer trailer, we start by fitting a couple of clips to the back of the downstands of the gooseneck. These clips just push into place, and then they're secured by a screw, and Tekno helpfully provide a screwdriver with it as well. But it's not really clear why these parts weren't fitted in the factory. Joining the deck sections together just uses a simple system of steel pins which push through some interlocking connections. This method relies on the model being made to some tight tolerances, but if you join the sections together and get them lined up properly, then the pins push in without too much force, as long as you've got them lined up correctly. You then just repeat the process for the second deck section, and when all 4 pins are in you get a good rigid connection, and Tekno have done a good job with this piece of model engineering. Assembling the tractor and trailer is very straightforward. The kingpin of the gooseneck just plugs into the 5th wheel on the tractor. It's a tight fit, but it's secure, and then you can just hook over the deck onto the gooseneck, and then that's the tractor and trailer assembled. What remains to be fitted is some detailing on the trailer. The first part is a plastic cover which goes over the end of the gooseneck, and that just clips into place. And as some optional detailing you can add some width marker boards as well. There are deck sections which can be added to the well between the 2 beams of the deck, and these just pop into place and they're a good fit. At the back of the trailer there are a couple more items of detailing to fit. One is a beacon light which just presses into place at the back. Again, it's quite a loose fit, as are the width marker boards which can fit into a variety of positions, and again it's best to use plastic putty or something to hold them securely in place. The other detail to tidy up is the hoses which join between the 2 deck sections, and there's a hole in which you can plug the hoses. Best to trim the ends off because they're a little bit too long, I think, and you can push them into the hole and produce something that looks quite neat. At the back it's not clear where the hoses go, so I'm just going to run them into the back of the bogie. The last pieces you can add, which are optional details, are the ramps up onto the rear bogie, and there's also a couple of small ramps which just rest at the front. The underside of the Scania has some good detailing, particularly the transmission, but the steering is just functionally modelled. The detailing of the front of the Scania cab is excellent, with a number plate and many tiny light details. And this continues with detailed mirrors and lights on the roof. The wheels look sharp with detailed hubs, and the standard of graphics on the cab is excellent. At the rear, the mud flaps are rubber, and the tiny reflectors add detail. Moving to the Goldhofer, the underside of the rear bogie is very detailed. Much of it is plastic, but it's got a good colour match. The gooseneck has some nice detailing and graphics, with the Goldhofer badge being really tiny. On the deck, the timber parts are plastic, but with a wood grain patterning. The rear bogie has some nice tie-down points which are crisply painted. However, at the rear, the light details are rather more simple, just being painted a single colour. The Scania rolls well enough in a straight line. And if we look at the chassis, there's no particular suspension on any of the wheels. The rear wheels are all joined on a common axle, so if you turn one, you turn all. At the front, the steering is linked and it does work, but the range of movement is very restricted, and you can only turn it a little way before the rear wheels start fouling the wheel arches. So you can get some kind of a steering pose, but you can't really roll the model at all with the wheels turned. The cab can be tilted, but the first thing you need to do is to take the bull bar off first. But when you do tilt the cab, there's a very detailed engine underneath, which is quite interesting to look at. And the mechanism on the tilting cab is good because it stays tilted if you want it to be tilted. And it just closes up easily. The rear bogie rolls well enough in a straight line, and if we have a look at the underneath, the mechanism for steering is actually quite complex. But it does work quite well because you can set the axles to produce proportional steering, so the rearmost wheel steers the most, and if you do that and then roll it, then it does trace a realistic arc as it moves along. The Goldhofer deck has another worthwhile feature, which is that it's extendable, and you can just pull the end out and it's a smooth mechanism because all the parts are metal and they slide well. And if you then fix it to the gooseneck, you get quite a long model, which is about 60 centimeters from nose to tail. So that gives some interesting posing possibilities if you want to put something particularly long on the trailer. Another possibility is to extend the width of the trailer, and to do that you can fold out all of the little supports along the sides. They're all metal, quite stiff, so they don't flap about, and then you can put the plastic planks on, and that works very well on this model, and it produces quite an effective wider deck. Overall, this is a really nice model from Tekno. The features and functionality of the trailer are very good, and the many small details on the Scania are really excellent. It's good enough to be rated an outstanding model.